Hello and welcome to Motors for the Masses, and today we have a bike that wants to make my life really hard as it goes up against a bike I really do want, and that is the Royal Enfield Bear 650. I am of course talking about the new BSA 650 Scrambler. So let's roll the intro and get cracking. Using a 652cc engine based on the Rotax engine for BMW, it is a liquid-cooled single-cylinder but with twin spark plugs, developing 45 brake horsepower and 41 pounds-foot of torque with a 5-speed box. Like the 350 Bantam, it uses right-way-up front forks and twin rear shocks. For that classic look, you get a 320mm front disc with a double piston caliper by Brembo, and a 240mm rear disc with a single piston caliper. And where it is ABS, of course, it's not switchable like the Royal Enfield Bear is. Front wheel is 19-inch with a 110 tyre, and the rear is 17-inch with a 150 tyre, using Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR rubber. Very good quality rubber, that is. Size-wise, it is 2.2 metres long, 880mm wide and 1.15 metres tall. It weighs in at 218 kilos and has a seat height of 820mm. But you only get a 12-litre tank. It does look quite sizable, but I think because of the offset filler cap, that means it goes quite far up in the middle. But it looks impressive. Sitting on here, I'm very comfortable. Don't forget, I am 5'10.5" with a 31.5-inch inside leg, and seated on here very comfortably. I have got the sort of edges of the cases here just slightly touching my inner thighs, but once my legs are up, you don't notice it. It's very comfortable on here, and you certainly feel like you're on a Scrambler simply because of the wide bar stance, and you are leaning slightly forward, but the seat is very, very comfortable. It's nice and forgiving. I don't know what it's going to be like on a journey. We'll find out when we take it out on the road in a little while, but so far it feels quite nice. The rubbers on the foot pegs seem okay. Hopefully they'll be all right when we're out on the road, but again, we'll see. Now the view from here is quite nice, a nice arrangement. I quite like the modern switch gears, works quite well with the modern classic look. Offset dash, someone with OCD might find that frustrating, but it is in line with the offset filler cap, so you know. You've got this sort of add-on USB thing on here, but it is mounted well and it does feel nice and sturdy. You've got a USB-A and a USB-C in there together, and that clicks on quite nicely. Bar end mirrors look quite nice. I like those, and they do move out and in. So if you do have a narrow gateway to go through, I say narrow, it is 880mm wide, so it's not that narrow. But yeah, I like it so far. A couple of little things I am disappointed with is when I first saw this at the NEC, it didn't have this lower mudguard on, it only had this upper mudguard, and I think that looked so much better. The addition of that, I see the purpose of it, to keep all the crap off the radiator, but you do have a grill on there, and it is a metal grill, so I don't know if it's needed, because you also have the metal belly pan as well. So maybe that could be lost, but it looks like you could just unbolt it and take it off if you don't want it. Aesthetics over practicality, I guess. So that's a little bit disappointing. However, the main thing is that the Euro 5 Plus boffins have got involved and changed the double exit exhaust they had on the previous concept bike and fitted it with this other one. Now, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Now, unfortunately though, what I am disappointed with is it looks like there's a bit of heat stress on the bend of the exhaust pipe there. As you can see, it's just gone a bit crusty. It's not horrendous because I suppose it's been used for several months, but you would like to think that it would not do that. But there you go. I suppose it's just a minor detail, really. Build quality wise, it seems okay. The welds are not too bad. They're not amazing, but they're okay. They're covered up. There's no sort of sharp bits on here, but I have noticed a couple of chips on the back of the seat where the paint's come off, and you can see the rust coming through just below the rear seat here. This particular bike seems to have a few additional extras, and that is the bar end mirrors, the engine guards, the saddlebags and the rear rack. And the other two extras I do like and would have if I had this bike is the headlight grille and this pad. And whereas I see the practicality of all that, I think it looks much better without all that stuff on it. Perhaps the engine bars and the bar end mirrors, but certainly I personally wouldn't have those, and I wouldn't have the rack. But I see their purpose. If you use this as your commuter bike or your daily bike, then they do serve a decent purpose. So what's the dash like? Well, let's turn it on. Just like the 350 Bantam, it says high. You've got your fuel gauge down here, all your lights around the top here. The rev counter, quite thin rev counter, but it is there at the top, and your miles an hour in the middle there, and then your trip and your odometer there. With your start button, kill switch and hazard flashes on the right hand switchgear. The left one houses the horn, the indicators, the headlights, and as I've said before, I find these sort of toggles, when you've got gloves on, when you go for your clutch, you can sometimes flick your headlights on by accident. I've done that a few times. And then you've got these. Now the M button seems to change it from trip to odometer, trip A, trip B, and then back to overall mileage. The S, I don't think seems to do anything, and the up and down buttons don't seem to do anything. Now I'm guessing one of them resets the tripometer. But other than that, I don't know. Now, I did try and look online for an online manual, and the only manual I can find online is for the 650 Gold Star, which is a different set of switch gears. And I couldn't find anywhere else online that tells me what these three buttons do. Perhaps if you own one of these, you can let us know. So then, let's start it up and have a listen, and we'll take it out for a ride and go and do a comparison with the Royal Enfield Bear. See if it's enough to make me want to make that switch. Not a bad little sound at all, that. It's got a very good scramblery type sound to it. Very nice indeed. I like that. Now let's see what the standard Bear sounds like. Oh, what a great rasp. So then, here we go for a ride on the BSA 650 Scrambler. It is a good looking bike. I quite like that colour scheme, the chrome and the yellow works nicely. It does look good. Right, here we go. So dash. Same dash like the Bantam 350. Hi. Yeah. Now when I first got this bike, it's only done 135 miles, so sound decent enough. Got a nice sort of scrambler grunt to it. Here we go. That's a nice bit of pickup. I have to say, first thing in the morning, on a cold morning, you have to let it sit there and tick over for a good 5 minutes, because it doesn't like it when it's cold. Once it's warmed up, it's absolutely fine, but when it's cold, it's a bit spluttery if you pull away too quickly. So give it 5 minutes to warm up in the morning. But it doesn't feel very weighty. It's got a nice feel to it. It's got a nice bit of grunt out of the corners. Oh, good brakes. Pigeon. Catch the pigeon. Catch the pigeon. Yeah. Doesn't feel overexcited on the throttle. It's nice and gradual, but when you open it up, it really does give it some. So the rear brake and the front brake work very well in unison, and it's definitely got a good bit of grunt. Visibility out of the mirrors, if you've got them fully extended, is nearing 100%, to be fair. 95 to 100%, which is pretty good. Seat is a little bit hard, like the Bantam 350, but you know, I've done 30 miles on it and I haven't felt uncomfortable. I love how it just pulls out of the corners like that. It's quite flickable. So it is 218 kilos, but it doesn't feel weighty. Not when you're riding it, only really when you're sort of manoeuvring it on grass, as I was this morning. But other than that, absolutely fine. It does feel quite flickable and a lot of fun. Dash is easy enough to see, slightly offset, but you know, we'll forgive that. You've got your USBs on there, USB-C and a USB-A, so that's fine. Oh, a telephone box, nice. Is there a telephone in it? I bet there isn't. No, books. There's always books in telephone boxes now. Oh, and there it goes. Yes! Nice bit of pickup. You are definitely seated on it. You've got the wider stance handlebars, so it's got that definite scrambler feel to it. Oh, a little bit of gravel there. Just be mindful, obviously, the front tyres. And when you are on a little bit of light gravel, tiny bit of giveaway, but that is because you've got the blockier tyres on this and not the road tyres, being a scrambler, of course. I like the arrangement. I like this. I think this is definitely an upgrade you should have, although personally I feel that should come with the bike to give that scrambler feel. Just quite nice and subtle. Other than that, the switch gears are exactly the same as the 350 Bantam. I like the headlight grille as well. That works quite nicely. I understand that that's an extra. Not everyone likes that necessarily, but yeah, it's a good touch. The saddlebags I personally don't need. I always wear a backpack, so to me it's not necessary, but it's a nice little addition if you're using it as your daily commuter. Thank you very much. And you want to put stuff in it, and you don't want to take a backpack. So I do see their purpose, just I personally don't need them. And that, by the way, was a 60-mile-an-hour road. Welcome to England. Tiniest roads are the fastest roads. I will take this on the dual carriageway in a little while and see how it fares, but this is obviously on the back roads at the moment, and I will now take it on the main A roads, and then we will go onto the dual carriageway in a short while and see how it fares. I don't think it's going to have a problem at all, but we will find out shortly. It's got good balance on it, and I quite like the suspension setup. I think with a heavier engine it doesn't feel as harsh. as the 350 does. You've got a bit more of a bounce in it. Good balance at slow speeds. Only just having to put my foot down there. Once it's warmed up, this bike is an absolute gem. Lovely engine. Nice and throaty. However, I will say it's definitely been hit by the Euro 5 Plus bug. Simply because when you are doing 60 mile an hour, or to be fair above 50, you can't hear the engine or the exhaust. And with that, if you're not concentrating, you forget what gear you're in, because there's no gear indicator. So you just got to count them. So you just play a little game with yourself, counting the gears, but you do forget after a while. And you can't hear the engine, you can't hear the revs once you've got the wind going in your helmet. So you don't really know what gear you're in. The revs, obviously you're thinking 3,500 RPM at 50 mile an hour, or 3,900 RPM, sorry, at 50 mile an hour. That seems about right for 6th. But it depends on the gearing of the bike and what you're usually used to. So balance is pretty good. It feels quite nice sitting on the road. And the sun is out at last. It has been cold. I was initially regretting my choice of jacket, bare bones, with just a t-shirt, because the wind hitting my chest. But the sun's out now, so it should warm up a bit. Nice little bike. Looks good. It's definitely fun. Got a nice bit of grunt. So in 6th gear, coming up to the national speed limit, easily gets up to 60, no dramas whatsoever. Yeah, it feels good, and it's definitely got more punch to go, so we'll see what it's like on the dual carriageway. Feels nice and composed, doesn't feel wobbly. Yeah, pretty impressive so far. So any lumps and bumps it takes with ease, sort of gliding over them quite nicely, to be fair. Much more so, as I say, than the 350 Bantam was. So now coming up to the dual carriageway, and we'll see how this fares. Straight out of the box, here we go. Yeah, no problem there whatsoever. Getting up to speed, we'll pull onto the dual carriageway. Up to 70, no problems at all. Great little bike. Feels nice and composed, sitting in the outside lane. No worries here. Obviously you've got perfect visibility, nothing's in your way. Even the mirrors are not intrusive, because they're bar ends, and they work really well because of the position they are in. Yeah, very pleasing. Well, whereas the 350 Bantam is probably not the bike to commute on, this you could do it very easily and very happily. I could sit on this doing a decent commute, no problem. You can have fun on the back roads, fun on the A roads, and just sit and cruise quite nicely at 70 miles an hour on the motorway or dual carriageway. It works. Yeah, what a great bike. The question is, of course, what's better, this or the Royal Enfield Bear 650? Well, let's take the Bear out and find out. Now, don't forget, I love the Bear. Especially the looks. I love the looks of it, but I also love the looks of this. So this is going to be a tough competition for me. Now, I know people have done comparisons with the Bear 650 before, but for my personal taste, I want to find out. So back-to-back riding is the best way to find out. Good indicators as well. It's quite simple to use. Let's say the switch gears are just like the Bantam. Very good brakes, hunker you down quite nicely. in city riding, obviously you've got the wider handlebars, so filtering not so simple. You can filter, but you've just got to be mindful of those bars and the mirrors, so it's not ideal. You've got to weave rather than filter, unless the gap's big enough. Depends how nice people are feeling. But balance is good, low speed balance, going through at sort of 5 miles an hour. I don't need to put my feet down at all. It works well. So yeah, pretty pleased all round, to be fair. There's not really anything I don't like about it, other than, I will say, when I'm doing 70 mile an hour, you do get a little bit of buzz through the foot pegs, and I mean a little bit of buzz, but you do feel it. Sort of between 65 and 70, you've got that buzz there through the foot pegs, not through the handlebars, but through the foot pegs. And then it sort of goes, and you don't really notice it after a while, but it is there, just like the 350 does, to be fair. You get buzz on that as well. So if I was to feed anything back to BSA, it would be to take a look at their foot peg arrangement and the padding you get on them, and maybe do something about that, because it's the only complaint I've got with both the bikes really, the Bantam 350 and this 650 Scrambler, is that you get a little bit of buzz through the foot pegs. So I say that's probably something for them to take a look at if they feel so inclined. If you want to pull away serenely, it'll do it quite nicely. It's not jerky, it doesn't splutter, the throttle response is pretty good, and the pickup is pretty good if you want to give it some. So it works both ways really. It's a pretty good all-rounder. So as we pull up to Moonraker's in Norwich, where I shall be borrowing the Bear 650 from, and I shall be taking out the Vosges R625, so that one is coming up very soon. Stay tuned for that, and I'll be back on this shortly for a sum up. So as I get off the BSA and head over here, I can see the Royal Enfield Bear 650 waiting. It's got an aftermarket exhaust on this one. Nice. So then, straight off the BSA and straight on the Bear 650. After I've ridden this, I'll do a side-by-side comparison, see the difference in looks and which one I prefer. Obviously, where the BSA is a single, this is the twin. So yeah. With the aftermarket exhaust, so I'm keen to hear that. I haven't heard that yet. And as I say, looks wise, I love the Bear. I really do love it, and it hasn't got that high level mudguard, but as I say, I'll do a side-by-side comparison in a minute. So first off, let's start it up and have a listen to that. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, that's a nice deep rumble. Oh, I can feel that vibrating my bones. I like that. Oh yes. Oh, I'm a bit in love with that. Oh, this is I don't know if this is fair. No, it's all about the ride at the moment, not the sound. I mean, the sound, it'll be good to hear that. I mean, if you want to hear the standard sound of the Bear, look back on my previous videos and I shall stick a link in the description so you can hear the Bear in standard form, but right, let's go. Okay, now interestingly, I can't remember if I pointed this out last time. I think I did, but you've got quite a short distance between your foot peg and the gear lever, so you've really got to sort of dip your foot down and get in there. Oh no, it's not. That's because, that's right, I remember now, I'm hitting it on the bar, so the bar points out a bit further, so the bar comes forward and then goes out. So that's why. So actually I don't need to turn my toe in, it's the other way around. I need to angle it out a bit more. That's better. Ah yes, that's right, I remember now. Right, that's just about getting used to it. Oh, this has the pickup too. Yeah, now I remember not to angle my foot in. I'm not catching it on that bar now. The bars don't feel as wide on this as they do on the BSA. The seat is a little bit softer on the Royal Enfield, and I don't feel as though I'm sitting as tall. When I say softer, it's a little bit more forgiving, but that might be the suspension as well, of course. Although I've got a little bit of a harder bit at the front. Actually, it feels as though I've got a little bit less seat before I get to the tank on this. So on your posterior it's a little bit softer, but around your gonad region it's a little bit closer to the bump of the edge of the seat before it gets to the tank. However, it still rides as well as I remember. Let's see if it's as punchy. So we'll get out near the A roads and the dual carriageway and see what it's like. So I'm in 6th gear doing 35 mile an hour. Let's see what this is like. If just to remind myself as a pick-upper. Yeah, no stuttering. Straight on up to 60 mile an hour. No dramas. I have to say, this is not as quick in acceleration as the BSA. The BSA is more punchy. I'm not saying this is a slouch, but it's not as quick as the BSA. So we'll try the dual carriageway and then we'll go down the A road and see what that's like. Good smooth gear change again. It does make a difference having that twin instead of the single. Just on the initial pickup, as in the way it pulls away, it's a bit smoother, but it's not as aggressive or punchy. Oh, I don't know, maybe it is. Do you know what, so far I'm not finding a massive amount of difference between the BSA and the Bear. I think it might come down to looks. But again, looks are subjective. Right. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it gets up to speed exactly the same, just as well. The difference, I think, is that as this is a twin, it's definitely smoother. I mean, you have to bear in mind that the BSA is a single thumper, and I like that, but I also like this twin. Personally, which one do I prefer? That is a very difficult question to answer.
I think I said ask then, and I meant answer. It's a difficult question to ask because you should say I like them both. Balance wise, they're both pretty similar. Sound wise, now bearing in mind this has got the aftermarket exhaust on, it doesn't sound too dissimilar when you're just cruising, but when you're on idle and you're thumping around, this one sounds better. Oh, is it down through the gears, nice. But in standard form, I think the BSA might just have the edge. This aftermarket exhaust does sound nice though. Little pop and fart there, fantastic. Oh, and I remember why I love this bike. It is brilliant. Very nice indeed. I can't really fault the Bear. The dashboard is more upright, whereas the BSA is slightly tilted down. Not that makes a massive difference, it's just that, and this is white backlit LCD screen. You don't really get the glare in the sun from either of them, to be fair, so there's nothing negative about that. Obviously you haven't got the bar end mirrors on this one, you've got the stalks. They're quite generic, but they work fine. Visibility wise, I've got better visibility out of the BSA mirrors. Grips wise, I prefer the grips on this because they are slightly concave. It fits your hand better than the BSA ones do. Switch gears, again, these are quite classic looking. The BSA has slightly better switch gears, but they both work just as well, and they work, and they look good. They're all right. The BSA is slightly more modern, whereas this has gone with a more classic look. The crash pad, I have to say, this one looks a bit pathetic. It's a bit like it should be on a BMX. You know? In fact, I think the BMX one's probably bigger. So the one on the BSA is definitely more substantial. However, if this was thicker, you wouldn't be able to see the dash. So I can see why they've done it. It's just a bit sort of, you know. I think the BSA has got good looks, but so is this. They both corner well enough on those tyres, similar sort of blocky tyres, and they both sit happily at 60, 70, cruising along. I do think the BSA has slightly more punch, but it's marginal. It is marginal. I think sitting here looking on the dash, the BSA has a better look on the handlebar arrangement and dash. Again, not that I don't like the Bear, just I think the BSA looks a bit better. Brakes are just as good on both of them, minding the gravel. I mean, this definitely has a good pickup, but I do think the BSA is a bit more punchy. And I also think the suspension is a bit more forgiving on the BSA. The suspension feels a bit harsher on this, so when you go over some bumps, it sort of jolts you a bit more on this than it does on the BSA. So the BSA has a slightly better suspension setup, I think. Mr. Magpie. Right, I think we need to go and compare the looks. What you also find with the BSA is that you're very much on top of the bike and a little bit more in the bike on the Royal Enfield, and it gives it that more scrambler feel, especially with the wider bars as well. The bars are definitely wider, and that sort of gives it that feeling that you're sort of being stretched out so it feels as though the seat's a bit higher. If the handlebars were closer together, you'd be sitting more upright, you wouldn't feel so stretched out. And I think that makes a big difference with how the seat height feels, which is rather interesting really. So the ergonomics of the bike are very different. It's still a pleasurable bike to ride. I just overall, as I say, it's a nice fun bike, and it gives it that sort of classic scrambler feel. They've sort of captured the authenticity of what a BSA is, even though it's a modern version. Still got enough grunt to pull up a hill in sort of higher gears, but you've got to be careful, knowing full well it's a thumpy single, that you'll be in a lesser gear going up a hill than you would be if you're on the Royal Enfield, because it's a twin, so the engine sort of behaves differently. It's just a matter of getting used to it, obviously. They've both got their positives and they've both got their negatives. I'll be honest, what I have found a couple of times is that at slow speeds, whilst that engine is still warming up, it can cut out a couple of times. I mean, it will start again straight away. It's no, you know, it's not as if it's not going to start, but it's really important that you let that engine warm up before you ride it. Once it's warmed, you don't get any issues whatsoever, but once it's cold, if you are not letting it warm up properly, and then you stop at some traffic lights or whatever, it can just go I don't think so. So you've got to be mindful of those single cylinders like that, you see. Interesting. That's the thumpy single for you. Oh my god. So you've really got to let this thing sit and warm up. If you don't, it could do that. I mean, you let the bike warm up and it should be fine. There's no temperature gauge, so I don't know how warm the bike is. It's almost like the automatic choke needs a while to sort itself out. See, now you can hear it revving a bit higher, now it's warmed up a little bit, and that makes a massive difference. See, now it is warm, it's fine. TR7. So that idling thing at when the engine's cold, I think is quite important.
So as a comparison, when you look at these two, now the BSA does come with this high level mudguard, and I'm not sure whether I like that with the lower mudguard. I don't know. Now apparently the Himalayan 450 mudguard does fit on here because it uses the same forks. So I wonder what that would look like with a high level mudguard as well on the Royal Enfield Bear. Looks wise, obviously you've got the single engine on here, you've got the twin engine on the Royal Enfield. I love the way the exhaust flows out of here, very nice. Obviously the aftermarket tailpipe on here, but other than that, looks wise, there's not a huge difference between them. So as a side-by-side comparison, which one do you think looks better, the Royal Enfield or the BSA? Engine-wise, obviously with the BSA you've got that single cylinder, quite a nice looking engine, and I do like this BSA symbol on here like they had on the Bantam, although there is an over sticker and not printed on, but you know, it works. And the design of the engine looks nice, obviously with that single cylinder exhaust coming out of there. As an aesthetics thing, it does look quite a nice looking engine. It's got that old school look about it. Yeah, it looks good. With the Royal Enfield, that twin engine look, very Royal Enfield, with that massive bottom end, really does look nice, and with that sort of bronzed twin exhaust coming out, I think finishes it off quite nicely. I think both have their own unique designs, but both work well. There's not really a lot to choose between them, to be honest. In terms of ride and comfortability, I think ride-wise, they both ride really nicely. However, I prefer the feel of the mid-range grunt of the BSA, but I prefer the low-end torque grunt from the off of the Royal Enfield. So it's a bit of a mix, to be honest. Aesthetics-wise, sitting on looking at the handlebars, I prefer the look of the BSA over the Royal Enfield, but I prefer the centralised clock arrangement on the Royal Enfield over the offside of the BSA. But that's my sort of OCD side coming into play. Ride-wise, the suspension I think is better on the BSA than it is on the Royal Enfield. So as it flows with the tank, obviously you've got the clock on the right-hand side and then the fuel filler on the right-hand side. Anyone with OCD will find that annoying, I think. But they have to have it on the right-hand side because of where the ignition switch is. So that kind of works. On the Royal Enfield, obviously you've got the centralised fuel filler, which I think personally is better. And then you've got the slightly to the left clock because of where the ignition is. But they're both sort of swings and roundabouts. I prefer the look of the dash when you turn that on than I do to the look of the dash on the BSA. The BSA I think is more of a classic look, which is weird because you've got the classic looking dash and the modern switch gears. And then you've got the more modern looking LCD dash with the classic circle, but the classic switch gears. Both bikes have the spoked wheels, which looks nice. The discs are on the other side, so the disc is on the left-hand side on the Royal Enfield and right-hand side on the BSA, and then the opposite on the rear because the chain's on the other side. So you've got the chain on the right-hand side on the BSA and the brake disc on the left, and then on the Royal Enfield, it's the other way around. You've got the disc on the right-hand side and the chain on the left. Not that it makes any difference, it's just aesthetically different. From the rear, a nice looking rear clock on the Royal Enfield with these rather large, I want to say oversized indicators, whereas on the BSA it's got that more classic look again with the little round lights and then the little round indicators. The seat, I think the seat is probably a bit harsher. Now, like I was saying before, with the way the seat sits as you sit, this is more flush up to the tank. You've got a tiny bit more there, better for your gonad region, whereas on the Royal Enfield, you've got this little lip here, and you can feel that digging in, especially with that piping there, this hard plastic piping. If that piping wasn't there, this would be a better seat. But because that piping's there, it's not. So comfortability wise, you've got a nicer, softer, more contoured seat here for your posterior, but not for your gonad region. Whereas on the BSA, it's more of that scrambler, flatter feel. And I think this is more comfortable than the Royal Enfield is. Tyre wise, you've got blocky tyres on both. The difference is the BSA does come with Pirelli Rally Scorpions, which are decent tyre, and this comes with the MRF. Again, not really a major brand tyre, but they work. So the tyres are much of a muchness, to be honest. You've got the more classic look on the radiator on the Royal Enfield, but it's a bit more exposed there, although you do have the mudguard extension, so that helps. But it's a bit more exposed with those pipes and the oil filter and the radiator, whereas on the BSA you've got the guard cover and you've got the sump guard, which is metal, which offers some nice protection as well. And of course you've got the crash bars on here, a nice bit of added protection also. You know, at this point, I just want to say that in the 35 minutes I've been here, sort of doing a comparison on this, in and out of bike deliveries and traffic and all sorts of beeping and God knows what, I've had 6 people in 35 minutes come up to me and say, "Oh, I've been watching you on YouTube," and had a nice little chat with them. So that's been really nice. It's nice to know that the channel is reaching. So thank you very much, and I want to say thank you to everybody for all your comments, likes and shares and watching the channel, so it's much appreciated. And what I've also noticed is that the demographic is all sort of 45, I don't want to out-age anybody here, but 45-year-old plus males that have been coming up to me and saying they've been watching the channel, which is a nice touch. So it just goes to show how the demographic has changed in people riding bikes and what they're out there looking for. So yeah, nice to know. Thank you very much, and hello to all of you. Right, back to the bikes. Now, in terms of suspension and ride, this is where there's quite a bit of difference. Now, interestingly, this has got the chunkier upside down forks, whereas the BSA has got the thinner, more traditional telescopic right way up forks. However, I find on a smooth road, these are very nice forks. They work really well. They're Showa forks, and they work really nicely. But I prefer the telescopic forks on bumpier roads. These work better for me, and I find these a little bit harsh on the bumpier roads, a bit more jolty. On the back, they're pretty much the same, to be honest. The Bear 650 twin shocks work nicely, nice and forgiving, as are the BSA shocks, just as good as each other, really. In terms of which do I prefer, that has put me in a bit of a quandary. I fell in love with this Bear and I still absolutely love it. But I also like the BSA, and I don't want to be a fence sitter, but I find there's features on this that I like and features I don't like. There's features on this that I like and features I don't like. One big thing is that the foot pegs are better on the Royal Enfield. You get a bit more buzz on the BSA when you're sitting at 65 to 70 miles an hour that you don't get on the Royal Enfield. The mechanics and the switch gears and the build quality are both as good as each other, but you've got some classic features on here like the right way up forks, where you've got the upside down forks on the Bear. This has gone more for a classic feel, I think. Not that it's cheap. There's certain things on this that I like better. I like this, I like the handlebar arrangement. I do like the switch gears on here, but I don't really like the middle part. I don't like the chrome handlebars, and these handlebars feel a bit more substantial and a bit thicker as opposed to the ones on the Bear. Not that they're cheap. I don't really like this pad. I prefer this nice chunky pad. I prefer this dash, but for me, this dash would have to be slightly taller. I would prefer, so I could put a beefier pad on here, because that just looks a bit, to be honest. I quite like this dash, but I like that this is more forward on the Royal Enfield, so you can see it more clearer, whereas that is a bit more tilted down. And the arrangement of the dash is better on the Royal Enfield than it is on the Bear. However, ride-wise, I love the mid-range grunt on this, and that feel of that single really works nicely for me. I also like the low-end grunt that the twin has got. And if I had the money, I genuinely would have one of each, because they are different rides. Even though they're both sort of aimed at the same market and they are scramblers, if I had to choose between the two, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't like the yellow, and I don't like the yellow. This one, the Royal Enfield Bear, with that green frame and the white with the checkered flag, that just works for me nicely. However, with the BSA, they do some nice colours too that I also like. But out of them, I think the yellow is the better one. Although the black with the red accents works quite nice as well, and it's quite in keeping with BSA. In terms of sticker-wise, the Royal Enfield, you've got the stickers under the lacquer, and the same on the BSA. I like the little touches the BSA has, like with the symbol on here with the three rifles. I prefer the exhaust on this, and I have to say, with that aftermarket exhaust, yes, that works. If I was to have a Bear, I would change the exhaust for this Rhino racing exhaust. That works a treat, love that. However, if I did have the Bear, I think I'd have to change the seat, because that is a bit annoying with that piping digging in your groinal area. That annoys me, and I prefer the seat on the BSA. As a rider's bike, this one works better, I think, the BSA, simply because of that mid-range grunt where you can really pull it in and out of corners nicely. I do like the fact that you've got great visibility with these bar end mirrors as well. Maybe bar end mirrors would work better on the Royal Enfield. I also prefer, I think, the traditional headlight with the grille and these smaller indicators on the BSA, whereas these to me are a bit too big for the type of bike. They're a bit too cumbersome, a bit massive. They should be a bit smaller, I think. So it has put me in a bit of a quandary because that's on my list. But I don't know whether that should be on my list now. What would you do? Let me know in the comment section below. As a bike on its own, love it. Great. And price-wise, in this colour scheme, the Honey Bear is £1,000 more than the BSA. That's quite a difference in new spec. Obviously, this has been out a few months now, so you can get it a bit cheaper. Now, the Royal Enfield Bear does range from 5,850 up to 6,950, whereas this is the price it is, 5,800, and that's it. So value for money, the BSA does come out as better value. However, and especially the one I want, the one with the green frame, that's the top end spec one, so that's £6,950 as opposed to this, which is £1,000 cheaper. So on that basis, the BSA electric scooters, this is the new age of men. So on that basis, the BSA is slightly better value. But in terms of which one I would buy, genuinely can't make a decision because there's swings and roundabouts of both of them. As I say, for anyone else who's looking for one, if you're looking for the top spec of the Royal Enfield, this is definitely, the BSA is better value for money. But other than that, it's more up to what you prefer. Go and ride both and then make a decision. That's all I can say, I think. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video. Click the notification bell for more uploads. There's more coming. And until next time, please ride and drive carefully, but have fun. Bye-bye.